I was arrested on my honeymoon because of my wife, and now I don't know if I ever want to see her again. My name is Paul, I'm 32, and until recently I was married to Lydia. We met 5 years ago and got married 3 years ago. I thought we had a solid relationship, but what happened on our honeymoon destroyed everything we were. Now, I'm not sure if I'll ever trust anyone again. It all started when we decided to travel to a paradisiacal island to celebrate our wedding anniversary. It was our first big getaway together since getting married. The hotel was incredible, the beaches were dreamy, and for a moment I thought nothing could go wrong. I was mistaken. On the third day, while we were at the hotel pool, I got a call from an unknown number. I answered because I'd left my car at the shop before the trip and was expecting an update. Lydia was swimming nearby but noticed the call and watched me with a frown. The call was brief, barely a few seconds. "Yes, this is Paul," I said. The person on the other end barely got a word out before Lydia climbed out of the pool and approached me. "Who was that?" she asked, crossing her arms. "I don't know, it was an unknown number," I replied. I hung up and slipped the phone back into my pocket. Lydia didn't say anything, but her expression changed. I'd seen that look before, the one where her mind started spinning stories that only existed in her head. I decided to ignore it and went back to sipping my drink. That night, during dinner at the hotel restaurant, she was distant. She barely spoke and avoided eye contact. When we got back to our room, she exploded. "Who was that woman who called you today?" she snapped. "What are you talking about?" "It was an unknown number, probably the car shop," I said. "Don't lie to me, Paul. I saw how you looked at your phone and hung up as soon as I got close. Are you cheating on me? Here on our honeymoon?" I laughed, not because it was funny but because it was absurd. "Lydia, are you listening to yourself? It was probably the shop, and if it wasn't, I have no idea who it was. They didn't even say anything." "You're a damn liar," she shouted, her voice rising to the point where people in nearby rooms could probably hear. I tried to calm her down, but every word seemed to fuel her anger. "I don't want to keep arguing about this," I said finally, rubbing my forehead. "Tomorrow we can check the call history together if you want, but I'm done with this now." "You're not getting away with this," she shot back. Then she did the unthinkable. She picked up the room's phone and called security. 2 hotel guards arrived within minutes. Lydia was crying and told them I'd assaulted her. I was in shock, unable to believe what was happening. I tried to explain, but they seemed to have already made up their minds. "Sir, please come with us," one of the guards said sternly. "Are you serious?" "Look, I haven't done anything," I protested, but it was no use. They escorted me out of the hotel, handcuffed like a criminal, and took me to the police station. I couldn't comprehend it. I just wanted it to be a bad dream. What followed was a nightmare. They threw me into a filthy cell and the officers treated me like garbage. They didn't let me make a call until the next day. They beat me, humiliated me. I won't go into every detail of what I endured in there, but what they did to me is something I'll never forget. 2 days later, Lydia showed up with a lawyer. She'd withdrawn the complaint and paid my bail, but the damage was done. When I got out, I couldn't even look at her. I got into the lawyer's car without saying a word. On the way back to the hotel, she tried to talk to me, but I had nothing to say. The trust was shattered. Update 1. When we returned to our country, I didn't go home. I went straight to my parents' house. Lydia called every day, sent messages, and tried to see me. At first, I didn't respond. Eventually, I decided to confront her. We met at a cafe. The moment I saw her, the weight of everything hit me. "Paul, I'm so sorry," she said, her voice breaking. "I was an idiot. I lost my mind. Do you have any idea what you did to me?" I asked, my voice shaking. "They beat me, locked me up, treated me like a criminal, all because you decided I was cheating without any proof." She sobbed. "I never meant for it to go that far. But it did," I cut her off. "And now I can't even sleep without reliving what they did to me. The worst part is you put me there." She reached for my hand, but I pulled away. I couldn't stand her touch. "I can't be with you," I said finally. I don't trust you anymore. And even if I wanted to, I can't. I stood up and left the cafe, leaving behind everything we'd been. I didn't know if I'd ever forgive her, but at that moment, all I knew was I wanted to move forward, without her. After that conversation, Lydia kept trying to contact me. She sent long texts, emails, and even showed up at my parents' house multiple times. At first, my parents tried to mediate, but I was firm. I didn't want to see her. I didn't reply to her messages, and when she called, I let the phone ring. Sometimes I read her emails, which always said the same thing. She was sorry, she'd made a mistake, she wanted to fix things. For me, it was too late. As days passed, I started having nightmares about the cell, the abuse, the humiliation, the powerlessness. I couldn't sleep, waking up in the middle of the night with cold sweats and a racing heart. Loud noises made me jump. I found myself checking the locks on the house multiple times before bed, something I'd never done before. I wasn't the same person I'd been before that trip. My parents grew worried. My mom urged me to talk to someone for help, and my dad, a usually stoic and reserved man, sat me down one night and said something that hit me hard. Son, what happened to you isn't something you can just ignore. If you don't do something about it, it'll haunt you for the rest of your life. You need to find a way to move forward, but that doesn't mean staying silent. The next day I found a therapist. In my first session, I could barely speak without my throat closing up. When I finally did, everything poured out. I talked about the cell, the beatings, the helplessness. My therapist listened quietly, and when I finished, said something I hadn't considered. Paul, what you experienced was severe trauma. It's not just what happened in jail, but that someone you trusted put you there. If you feel the need to seek justice, that's completely valid. That's when I started considering suing Lydia for emotional and psychological damages. I couldn't let her just move on with her life after what she'd done. She hadn't just betrayed me, she'd destroyed me in a way that would take years to repair. It wasn't fair that I carried the weight of her actions while she went on as if nothing happened. That I contacted a lawyer, who said the case was complex but not impossible. He explained that emotional distress lawsuits are hard to prove, but with medical reports, witness testimonies, and evidence from my time at the police station, we had a strong case. Do you want to move forward with this? He asked, pointing to a civil lawsuit document against Lydia. I didn't answer right away, but deep down, I knew I couldn't keep living with this burden without doing something about it. Update 2. I decided to move forward with the lawsuit. It wasn't about revenge but about needing justice. What happened to me couldn't go unpunished. When Lydia received the notification, she called me crying. Paul, please don't do this. I didn't mean to hurt you. I didn't know how to handle my emotions. Her voice was full of guilt, but I couldn't tell if it was genuine remorse or fear of consequences. Too late, Lydia, I said. This isn't just about us anymore, it's about what you put me through. Her lawyer tried to negotiate, offering a financial settlement, but I rejected it. It wasn't about money, it was about holding her accountable. The legal process was long and exhausting. During the hearings, Lydia tried to justify her actions with tears and apologies, but the evidence was clear. Police station records, medical reports of my injuries, and testimonies from other tourists who overheard the argument were enough to prove she'd lied about the assault. Reliving every detail of what happened in that cell felt like being dragged back to that hell. Testifying about the officers who held me brought back the same helplessness I felt that night on the island. There were moments I considered dropping the lawsuit, not for Lydia but because the process was draining me. It stole my sleep, consumed my thoughts, and forced me to relive what I wanted to forget. But every time I doubted, I remembered the fear, the pain, the humiliation. I couldn't let it go unpunished. The judge ruled in my favor. Lydia was ordered to pay legal costs and attend mandatory therapy. It wasn't a harsh sentence, but it felt like some justice. The day the trial ended, Lydia waited for me outside the courtroom. She looked broken, thinner, with sunken eyes from crying. You hate me now, she said, her voice barely audible. I held her gaze but felt nothing. No anger, no sadness, no satisfaction, just emptiness. "No," I replied, "but I don't love you anymore and I'll never trust you again." For the first time, I saw real understanding in her face of what she'd done. But it was too late. I turned and walked away, leaving behind the worst chapter of my life. Thanks to everyone for the support, it really means a lot. Update 3. It's been 6 months since the trial ended. I'd love to say everything's back to normal, but I'm still rebuilding. I'm not the same person I was before that trip to the island. Something inside me changed in a way I'm still trying to understand. The first months after the trial were the hardest. I thought the ruling would close that chapter, but I realized legal justice and emotional healing are two different things. The court said I was right, but that didn't erase the memories, the sleepless nights, or the irrational fear I felt every time an unknown number called. Therapy has been my only refuge. At first, I struggled to talk about what happened. I didn't want to relive it, but my therapist insisted it's not about forgetting but learning to live with it. Every session is a battle between the memories and the need to move forward. Some days I wake up without the weight on my chest. Others, I dream of the cell walls, the sound of locks, the officers' dismissive looks. I've been diagnosed with PTSD, something I never imagined I'd face. I never thought something like this would happen to me. Sometimes I think about Lydia, not because I want to see her, but because I can't help wondering if she truly understands the damage she caused. Does she move on with her life, or does the shadow of what she did haunt her too? I didn't expect to run into her. It happened one ordinary afternoon. I'd gone to a cafe after work, trying to get used to being around people without feeling uneasy. I sat by the window and ordered a coffee. While waiting, I felt someone watching me. When I looked up, there she was, Lydia. For a moment, the air seemed to thicken. Her expression shifted from surprise to nervousness, and I saw her lips tighten before she took a step toward me. "Paul," she said, her voice quieter than I remembered. I didn't respond right away. Something inside me tensed, not anger or fear, but an odd sense of emptiness. "I didn't expect to see you here," she continued cautiously. "Do you have a moment?" I could have walked away or ignored her, but for some reason, I nodded and gestured to the chair across from me. Lydia sat carefully, as if afraid I'd explode. She'd changed, her hair was shorter, her eyes duller, and she seemed more fragile than I remembered. "I don't want to bother you," she said, fidgeting with a napkin. "I just need to say something I didn't have the courage to say before." I waited silently. "What I did," her voice cracked and she paused to compose herself. "There's no justification, no matter how much I try to explain it. The damage I caused you is unforgivable." She looked up, her eyes glassy. "I'm not asking for forgiveness, Paul. I know I don't deserve it. I just need you to know I'm sorry, not an empty sorry, but truly sorry. I hate myself for what I did." I took a deep breath. At one point in my life, those words might have meant something, but now they stirred nothing. No relief, no satisfaction, no anger. "I don't hate you, Lydia," I said finally, "but you don't mean anything to me anymore." I saw those words hit her hard. "I guess I deserve that," she whispered, looking away. A long silence followed. "Can I ask you something?" she said suddenly. I didn't respond, but she took my silence as a yes. "Are you happy?" The question caught me off guard. I thought about it. My days in a new city, my efforts to rebuild, the nights when the past felt unbearable. "I'm working on it," I said. Lydia nodded. "That's more than I can say for myself," she replied. I didn't know if her words were a confession or self-imposed punishment. "Take care, Paul," she said, standing and leaving the cafe without looking back. That I stayed there, watching her silhouette fade into the distance. For the first time in a long time, I felt I'd truly closed that chapter. I can't say everything's healed. Some days I still battle my thoughts, the memories that still hurt. But something shifted after that encounter. I realized I no longer carried the weight of anger or the need for answers. I didn't expect anything from Lydia anymore, and that was freeing. Since then, I've tried to focus on the present, not the past or what could have been. I don't know if I'll ever fully trust someone again, but I'm working on it. Life goes on, and though the wound is still healing, I know I'm on the right path. To everyone who's followed my story, thank you for listening. I don't know what the future holds, but for the first time in a long time, I feel in control of my life again. And after everything I've been through, that's a start.